Spectrovision Radio.
So yesterday I asked a very simple question about NASA and space, and the internet lost its mind. And I want to talk about it today because it's very fascinating from a human psychological point of view. But we're also going to get into some of the nuances of space travel and the moon. Did we go to the moon? Did we fake it? What did Ingo Swann see there? What were these beings that told us to go home and never come back? Why does NASA release images now on Artemis 2, 60 years after Apollo, that basically looked the exact same? No stars in the sky. With all of our advancements in camera technology, why are there no stars in the sky? And when the first Apollo 11 crew came back and did that weird, eerie, chilling press conference, and they were asked point blank, what were the stars like? Why did they all say they never saw stars? Neither on the surface of the moon when looking up, or even in their journey, their multi-day journey in deep space, not around any illuminated body. They still didn't see any stars when looking out the window. There's a lot of odd things around space and around the moon. We don't know that much about space. We think we do. We know about our local space, our low Earth orbit. We know about our local, inside of our atmosphere space. We know a good deal about that. We don't know everything. We know a good deal. We don't know much about deep space at all. And I have a friend, I won't say his name here, but he works very closely with NASA, and not the NASA that we know, but like deep in mission control NASA. And they're very open about how they don't know what space is and that they're confused, and they've hit many, many walls, and they're trying to reach into other sectors, other areas that maybe have a more expansive view of things to try to figure out what space is. So it's not crazy for someone like me to question space because we don't really know what space is. It's also not crazy to question NASA because they have a checkered history. They're not exactly the most transparent government agency. So questioning these things is pretty normal. And if you follow me on my podcast and online, I question everything. And something interesting happened yesterday when I just questioned. I posed a rational question. It wasn't speculative. It wasn't controversial. It wasn't any sort of conspiracy theory. It was just a question. Why are there no stars in these pictures? And I am not exaggerating when I said people came unhinged. And that's why I want to dive into the psychology of the belief system we have to adhere to, that we actually sign an agreement for when we enter into the Earth Life Simulator. Let's go. Hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Conscious Observers. This one, no doubt, is going to be controversial because I'm going to talk about something that people really have strong opinions on one way or the other. And I'm going to talk about both sides, okay? I'm not a moon landing denier. I'm not a space is fake kind of a person, but I also ask questions and like to zoom out. And there is so much weirdness around space and around NASA and around the moon, and we're going to talk about it. And if you follow me and you know me, I talk a lot about my simulator theory, that this is a simulator for consciousness development, and that it's not like a virtual reality per se, but it is not base level reality. And I'm going to read you before we get into this, because we're really going to start cooking here in a second. I'm going to read you a part of Robert Monroe's book. This is Far Journeys, one of the best books ever written. Did a full book report on it, but let's go into this chapter because I never read from this chapter. And what this part is Robert Monroe's consciousness before he was Robert Monroe, his first sojourn into Earth, his first dip into this Earth life experience, when his consciousness first came upon Earth, and he saw what it was, and he was like, I think I want to go in there. I think I want to be human. That looks really cool and interesting. Well, you meet with somebody called the entry director, Ed. And Ed is this consciousness, this energy that kind of handles first timers, right? People that just come to Earth and are like, I want to go in. I mean, there is this hierarchy and this managerial system around Earth. And part of it is knowing what you're getting into. So they give you this kind of like briefing of, okay, this is what to expect. Like, it's wild down there. You're going to get the memory wipe, and you're not going to know what's going on. You're not going to remember that you existed before this. You might get stuck in there in the form of like, this reincarnation loop because one life isn't enough. You get a taste of it, and it's like a drug and you want to go back in for more. So they tell you all this stuff, kind of trying to scare you away because they only want committed souls coming in. But part of it is signing an agreement. Basically, it's like agreeing to terms and conditions before you download software or something like that. So I'm going to read it to you, and just because I think it's super interesting. AA, which is Robert Monroe's consciousness before he was Robert Monroe. Lean back and let the rote open. Okay, this is the agreement and understanding. Human sojourn only. First entry status, FES. Organized as a school for compressed learning, successful graduates achieve tangent rating. For duration of human sojourn, firm agreement that time-space exists has reality. Agreement of reality of particular entry point and its environs, matter, planet Earth, sun, solar system, galaxy, physical universe, of time indicated at entry point, of physical, animate, from designated, as well as those of others of past events recorded as human history, of complete biostructure as encountered. I mean, that's a convoluted way of saying, essentially, for the duration of your human sojourn, this is what it says. For duration of human sojourn, firm agreement that time-space exists. Okay, so that's number one. You have to agree that time-space exists and has reality, meaning it's reality. This is reality. Agreement of reality of particular entry point and its environs, matter, planet Earth, sun, solar system, galaxy, physical universe. So your agreement of that particular entry point, you're agreeing to it. So all this is your terms of agreement. Of time indicated entry point, of physical, animate, from okay, we already read all that. But I think that's the first part. For duration of human sojourn, for the duration of this life, firm agreement that time-space exists. We all agree to this before we come in. And it even specifically says matter, planet Earth, sun, solar system, galaxy, physical universe. They're saying these are all the things you're agreeing to that physically exist. In order for a learning system to function at maximum efficiency, temporary blinking of pre-entry activity is essential. Agreement to perform such blinking is hereby authorized. This is the memory wipe. This is the reason that when you come in, you're deaf, dumb, and blind. You don't know what you were before, what happens next. Of course you were an intelligence and a consciousness before. You probably had many, many human lives. And even if it's your first human life, then you had other lives, other places. But you have a blanking, it's a gentle way of saying it. And you're agreeing to that, okay? Anything to the contrary contained herein, notwithstanding, all FES remain fully established in freedom of will and consciousness at the entry point. This is guaranteed and is required by the compressed learning system in use, meaning that at the entry point, when you're first born, you have full freedom of free will and consciousness. Now, what happens after that, you're entering into the system. Like, they can't control that. Once you're in the earth life, things take away your free will. Things take away your consciousness. Things take away all sorts of your freedoms. But that's not, at the point of entry, you maintain all your free will and all your consciousness. And then it's up to you how much of that you keep after that. The final note of caution. Certain aspects of the human experience may produce specific and general effects which may be harmful. And so then AA released the rote. Scare tactics? Need them to hold back the mobs that would swamp the place with applications. That's Ed, the entry director, saying that they kind of put these scary things in there to, like he says, hold back the mobs that would swamp the place with applications, knowing that, Earth is cool, it's fun, it's an exciting place. But to get into the Earth life experience, you have to come into a physical body. So to kind of keep some people that aren't fully committed, that just want to joyride or something, they put some scary stuff in there. But anyways, I just thought that first part was very interesting. Because according to this book, which, I really like this book, we agree to this. And part of the agreement before we come in, as when we're just non-physical consciousness, before we come into the physical body, part of that agreement is that we are going to forget everything before that point. And we are agreeing to accept everything that we see as physical matter reality. This Earth, the stars, the moon, space, the universe, everything. We have to agree to that. Okay. I wanted to put that in there because what I noticed yesterday on X, I'll just pull it up right here. I asked a pretty simple question, okay? Like, if you follow me, I don't try to be controversial on purpose. I just a lot of the stuff that I'm fascinated by and am trying to prove or disprove are just tend to be very, I don't know, controversial subjects. So I'm controversial in sort of a roundabout guilty by association way. But here's my question, or here's my post. Not one star. And I show a picture of Artemis 2, taking a picture that has the moon and the Earth in it from now, 2026, next to a picture from 1968. I don't know what Apollo mission that is, but 1968. And actually, the 1968 picture looks better, which I just a lot of this doesn't make any sense. But here's my exact verbatim: not one star. 60 years of technological progress with cameras, and not one star. I've heard all the explanations for this. None make any sense. Okay, that's pretty harmless. I'm not saying that we faked anything. I'm not saying space is fake or we faked the moon landing or any of that. I'm just saying, where are the stars? Like, here's this picture, even the one that from Artemis, the Earth is just a tiny little sliver of Earth because there's a big shadow on it. So it's not producing that much light. And then moon, I understand the moon is a reflective surface. And it's pretty dark in this picture. And nothing's blown out, which means that the exposure is probably pretty low on it. And there's not a single star. And there's trillions of stars. I mean, just trillions. Like, you go out to the desert, you go to one of these dark sky parks and you look up, and I mean, you can't even see black sometimes because there's so much light from the stars. You can't even see black space. It's just stars, just a blanket of lights. It's amazing, beautiful, mesmerizing. And we're told that a lot of times we can't see the stars on Earth, and this is all real and true because of light pollution, right? But then even when you get out into like a dark sky park, for example, then you're told, okay, well, because of the Earth's atmosphere, that makes them twinkle. That's why they twinkle. And also it kind of dulls it and makes it harder to see. Okay, so when you're out in space, you don't have the Earth's atmosphere, obviously, and you don't have like as much light pollution. Now I understand the sun is out there, okay? I understand the sun is bright, but there's pictures where the sun is blocking out on the other side of Earth. There's pictures where they're taking a picture completely away from the sun, all sorts of stuff. I just don't, to me, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I've been in photography for a long time. Me and Sarah had a photography studio back in Dallas for years. Photography has always been a part of my life. I mean, I have a marketing company. I take pictures all the time. I use DSLRs. I've used DSLRs for 15 years. I know everything about them. And I understand the intricacies of low light pictures and when you have foreground lights and background lights and this kind of stuff. I understand all that. I can also show you hundreds of examples of people on Earth taking pictures of the Milky Way over a city. And there's like bright lights in the city, and then you see the Milky Way. And I understand it's long exposure and all that kind of stuff. And people were telling me we couldn't do this stuff in space. So, okay. So technical stuff aside, because people argue all day long. Trust me, there's people out there right now that are like yelling at their phone because I'm saying any of this stuff, and they might be photographers and this is driving them crazy. I get it. Okay. Technical stuff aside, because you can make a case for any of these things, why you can't see stars and why you can see stars. The weirdness does not end there, because what happened yesterday on this post, and I'll put some pictures up here, but I got what do they call it when you get that community noted, right? Okay. And this post has like 800,000 views. All right. So it went kind of crazy overnight. And people are losing their minds. And what I noticed is that, so I talk, if you follow me on X, I mean, come on, my X is unhinged. Like it's unfiltered. It's raw. We go into everything. It's no holds barred. It's a lot of fun, but I mean, it's pretty intense. And I can count on one hand how many community notes I've ever got, and we're talking about, I mean, I forget how many hundreds of millions of impressions that I get each month. And I've never got a community note that I can remember. I mean, my last community note was like a year ago. It never happens. I got community noted on the moon thing almost instantly. I mean, it was crazy. I've never seen a community note that fast. And the community note is nonsense. It's not even a good point. And there's no recourse or anything. The person who, I don't even know, is an anonymous source. And they're just like, yeah. So not only did I get community noted, it stuck. And it's not a good one. It's not like the person's a scientist or a physicist or an astronaut or works for NASA. It's just some random person with some like BS argument. And it's like, that sticks as a community note. So I was like, that's interesting. I got community noted when I talked about the moon. And my My post wasn't controversial. My post asked a question. My post said, why are there no stars? So that's an open-ended question. I'm inviting people to tell me, hey, Jordan, here's why there's no stars. Cool. But I got community noted, you know? And it's like, okay, why would I get community noted? So I'm just asking a question. And then you start reading the comments and woo, holy cow. Like, again, I understand photography. I understand basics. I understand photography 101 and how aperture works and how exposure works and how, shutter speed and all that kind of stuff. I get it. I get it. It's really not complicated. It's really not. Cameras are pretty easy. They've also gotten very advanced. I mean, we have, high dynamic range like HDR. We have auto HDR. We have all sorts of things. All of these astronauts have phones. Their phones or iPhones have auto HDR. It's really not hard to capture multiple light sources and get pretty good detail. It's really just not. And so I was confused, like legitimately confused. And I was asking questions to try to get answers. But here's where it gets interesting from like a psychological point of view. People, it triggered bots like I've never seen before. So many bots. I mean, bots on top of bots, bots yelling at bots. I mean, it was crazy. I had to block so many people because I was like, holy cow, either you're a bot and I'm blocking you because you're a bot, or you're a human who just absolutely lost their mind when I asked a question about the moon. And this question was just about stars, about space. It was just a general question. And I was like, wow, this is like I have in the last week. I mean, I did multiple posts on God, on Jesus, on Christianity, on aliens, on missing scientists, on the war in Iran. I mean, we full gamut, we talk about everything. And none of those elicited the response that I got whenever I asked, why are there no stars in these pictures? So on one hand, I can say, okay, people just think that's a stupid question, I guess. And they think Jordan's stupid because he asked a stupid question and they feel the need to tell me I'm stupid, which a lot of them did. It was wild how people act when they're not in front of your face. They'll just be like, you're stupid. This is the stupidest question. You need to delete your X account right now and go move into a hole. It's just like, holy cow, man. So people went from 0 to 100 and it was wild. And some of the people were rational people that I've had interactions with before. And they were like very, very like hypersensitive. Like they would say something and I'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And they're just like, you're an idiot. Like start freaking out. I was like, wow, this is wild. This is way more volatile than politics or religion or anything. And I was like, why? Right? So it goes back to like what I was talking about with the Far Journeys book. If this is an agreed upon reality, if this is a simulator for consciousness development, like I say, then you have to enter into those terms of conditions. And part of that is at a subconscious level. You're agreeing through and through that this is real, that's real. NASA would not lie to us. Everything is as it's presented, period. And if you question that, it's like questioning your reality. It's questioning your belief system. And people fight for that. They'll go to bat for that. That's wild. NASA has an extremely shady has just said things that are just completely outlandish and ridiculous. And people will defend them as if it's family. I think that's interesting. Okay. Now, do I think we landed on the moon? Okay. This is not a cop out, but people are going to get mad at this because people want a definitive answer. There's two camps. We landed on the moon or we faked it. The people that say we landed on the moon think everyone who says we faked it is a complete idiot, vice versa. There's not a lot of middle ground there. There's definitely no reconciliation. So I think that we landed on the moon. I think that moonshot ideas are definitely possible because the human collective, when they're all committed, I mean, I did a video on this before about the commitment that was there in the Apollo programs and how, when NASA said we lost the technology, we didn't lose the technology. We lost the ecosystem. We lost the willpower. We lost the collective attention to detail and determination to do something that was probably far outside of our capacity to do at the time. We lost that. And I think that humans can accomplish extraordinary things when they're committed and when they all believe in one thing. And I think that we probably, I wasn't there, I can't say for sure, but we probably did go and land on the moon with the first Apollo mission. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Buzz, all who all was there? I want to get the names right. So it was Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, and Neil Armstrong. Yeah, so just those three. So those three fellas, they had some very interesting things to say as soon as they got back. Okay. Um, I'll play this little video clip right here. This is when they were asked specifically about the stars. Now, this press conference is the most bizarre press conference you'll ever see in your life. I mean, if you watch the whole thing, it will give you chills because these people look like they're either MK Ultra'd or they have just seen a ghost or both. So they come back from the moon. They're the first people to step foot on the moon. They should be elated. They should be freaking out. And they're sitting there like zombies. I mean, completely just the most eerie thing. They look completely lost and confused. And then at one point, a reporter asks them, "What were the stars like? Like, what were the stars like?" And all of them basically said, "I don't remember seeing any stars." And then the one guy, Collins, was like, "No, there weren't any stars. Like, just you know." And then like this is just a clip, but they go into it more about how on the surface of the moon, obviously they didn't see stars because the surface of the moon is very bright. But even then, you can be standing in a bright parking lot at night and your eyes will adjust over time and you'll start to see stars. It's really not that hard. But I get that. But even in their multiple day journey between Earth and the moon, so you're away from both of the light sources. And even then, looking out the portholes and everything, they didn't recall seeing stars. Why? There should be so many stars. It should be hard to see anything else. So I don't get it. I don't get it. But here's NASA astronauts right here saying, we didn't see any stars.
Two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may. When you were carrying out that incredible moonwalk, did you find that the surface was equally firm anywhere, or were there harder and softer spots that you could detect? And secondly, when you looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
We're never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any. I don't remember seeing any.
You know, it's kind of weird. So, you know, Armstrong and some of the other people had some very interesting things that they said. This has all been talked about before. I'm not an expert on this, so I don't want to like quote these people, but talking about how there was, you know, spaceships around the craters and that there was other beings or there's radio snippets, clips from the radio transmissions where they're talking about seeing objects and things like that. That's all been, like, that's all out there. Okay. If I have time to include those, then I will, but they're easy to find. But something else. So Ingo Swann, you know, most credible remote viewer in the world, pretty much worked with the government, wrote an amazing book called Penetration, and he was tasked by our government to remote view the moon. And this was after they went to the moon, and he didn't know. It was a double blind. He didn't know what he was remote viewing, but he found out afterwards. And when he went, so he's remote viewing this target, and he was exceptional. I mean, he was very, very reliable. Had been doing this for a long time with Project Stargate and SRI, and you know, what the best. I would assume that I would say it's pretty much agreed upon. Ingo Swann was the best. He was the one who created all the techniques that everybody else used. So he remote viewed the moon and said, you know, that I'm being told to go away, that there's something that sees my consciousness and is preventing me from coming. And whenever he like was able to like get past that and actually see the moon, he wrote all about this in Penetration, one of the best books ever. It's freaky. I mean, it will completely change how you look at everything. But he said that there was two, it might have been three, but at least two types of beings in the moon, that there was the Nordics, and that the Nordics, actually there were three, because if I remember right, it was the Nordics who were using the Greys, but also had humans there that were doing kind of slave labor type stuff. And that they were the ones that told him to go away and never come back. And he was kind of, his consciousness was banished from the moon. And he came back out of a session. And he was like, where the hell was I just RVing? Because there was some advanced consciousness and they were doing some crazy, horrendous stuff. And I was told to leave. So you can read that book. I recommend you do. It's a very, very good book. But you put all this together and it definitely seems like, okay, there's probably some beings in the moon. This has been reported many, many times by many, many people. We know the moon doesn't make any sense. It's something like 1/400th the size of the sun and exactly 1/400th closer to the earth than it is to the sun. So it's the exact position and exact size to perfectly block out the sun from our perspective, which is what creates the eclipses. And that's just doesn't make any sense. We know it rings like a bell. You know, if you trust NASA, again, So if you're disputing that it rings like a bell, then you're also disputing NASA, because NASA is the one who said that they had a seismograph on the moon, and then when they landed a lander on it, they were able to take a reading and determine that the moon was hollow and it rang like a bell for like 2 hours, which they didn't expect. All the craters, no matter how wide they are, they're all the same depth. If you look at the moon, they have these huge wide craters, but they don't go any deeper, which basically says that there's some sort of a hard inner shell that's preventing like even a direct hit from like a big object. It's like it leaves an impression, but it doesn't go down, which it should. Like on Earth, the more wide it is, the more deep it is too, but not on the moon. And it's like tidally locked, which means one side faces us at all times, the other side doesn't. And then there's like the lunar wave that's been recorded multiple times of how it seems like there's like a kind of a holographic field over the face of it, because there's like this ripple. It's almost like a line in a TV. If you record a TV with your phone and you can see the lines because it's 2 different frame rates, it looks like that. So there's a lot of, we went to the moon 60 years ago and then we didn't go back for some reason. Like all this stuff suggests that we went and we were told to leave. And then because we're in a Cold War with Russia, and we'd already trained all the astronauts and spent billions and billions of dollars on the Apollo project and all this kind of stuff, that they had to just pretend that they were going back. And that would explain why there's ample evidence showing and suggesting that we went to the moon, and ample evidence showing and suggesting that we faked, because I think we did go, and then I think we had to fake the rest. That would explain all that. It would also explain why Artemis 2, 60 years later, instead of landing on the moon, which is an amazing accomplishment, is doing something arguably way easier. They're saying this is a bigger accomplishment because they're going further in distance, but they're slingshotting around it. So gravity's doing all the work. They're just along for the ride. I don't even know why there's 4 people in that capsule. It doesn't make any sense. One person could do this. It's all automated. But anyways, what I think they're doing is they are testing the waters. They're slingshotting around. They broadcasted it out there. Everybody knows. So if there are intelligences on the moon, they know that we're doing this. And we went real close. And it's kind of to see like, okay, what are they going to do? Testing the waters. Like when they put people in those shark cages, dip them down in there and other people watching, see what happens. Good luck, guys. I think that's what we're doing. Anyways, it's not a binary thing. It's not like we went or we didn't go, or space is fake or space is real, or NASA's lying or NASA's not. I think it's all of those things, and I think that's why it's so interesting. But what's so fascinating about this whole topic is how out of bounds it is to talk about it or question it. I mean, nothing will get you labeled a kook faster than just questioning NASA. And why is that? I mean, that's the basis of this video that I'm doing right now is not that people have strong feelings about space or NASA or anything like that. I mean, people have strong feelings about their favorite kind of ice cream. I mean, you could start a fight by saying you shouldn't put pineapple on pizza and people lose their mind. So I understand the unhingedness of people, especially on the internet. But as someone who posts on X, I look at X as kind of like it's a nice cross spectrum of different groups of people, different demographics and that kind of stuff. I have a big following with a lot of people, from all sorts of different backgrounds. I have people that follow me that are, CEOs of like Fortune 500 companies, and people that follow me that are 15 years old and just, still in middle school. It's like a nice cross section. So I can kind of like gauge the temperature of the collective, by when I put something out there and you see what the response is. Now, I don't put these things out there to instigate a response, but it's hard not to gauge responses, if you pay attention. And man, what happened yesterday was nuts. It was really, really wild to see rational people become completely unglued, cussing, yelling, like calling me names, all this kind of stuff. It's like, okay. People defending NASA like you're talking about their mom, like, okay, I didn't see that coming either. The community note, like instant community note. I didn't see that coming either. The bots, like I don't normally get a lot of bots. My comment areas are very human, people having rational, intelligent conversations most of the time. So the bot thing was weird. And I was just like, whoa, like this triggered so many things, like so many just attack dogs came out of everywhere. And I was like, from a psychological point of view, like, why is that? Well, you're questioning people's, like it's creating what's called ontological shock. Like just posing the question causes people to internally ask that question, whether they want to or not. So everyone who saw my question, even if they think I'm an idiot, they still for a brief second are like, why aren't there as many stars? And why did this? Why did this? And even though they can immediately be like, that's all nonsense, Jordan's an idiot, they thought it for just a second, a split second, they thought it, which is good. I mean, question everything. The truth does not mind being questioned. Lies do. Lies hate being questioned. Lies freak out when you question them. The truth welcomes it because it doesn't have anything to hide. So me asking a question should not have been a big deal, but it was. And that led me to remembering the entry director part of Far Journeys, Robert Monroe's book, where he explicitly goes into the fact that we sign a contract when we come in here. Every single human consciousness, every single consciousness that enters into a human body signs this contract. And part of the contract is saying we will assume that everything that's presented to us in this physical reality is real. And to question that is to break that. So I guess I'm breaking it. And I don't really know what to do with that. I don't know, I've played with this before, this notion of, okay, if this is a simulator for consciousness development, we enter into this voluntarily and we do sign off on that terms of service, then is it right for someone like me to be questioning these things? Or is that kind of breaking the rules? And that's something that weighs on me because it's a valid question, because I do believe these things. But I also am leaning towards that most of us have overstayed our welcome inside the simulator. That what was supposed to be a temporary sojourn, what was supposed to be a dip in, learn some things and dip out, has turned into dozens, if not hundreds, of human lives and fragmentation of our consciousness. And I think that we are supposed to start remembering and digging ourselves out. Now, people that need to be in here, that maybe are first timers or newbies to the Earth life experience, they won't even listen to this. They're not at that point in their journey. They're not following my podcast. Everything I just said sounds like complete rubbish. And they're like, that Jordan guy's lost it. And they clicked off a long time ago. So I don't have to really worry too much about triggering those people or making these people like wake up or whatever, because, none of this would be on their radar and none of it would make any sense at all to somebody brand new. But somebody who's beginning their ascent, who's trying to dig out, who understands that they've learned everything they came here to learn, they've had all the experiences they came here to experience. It's like school. You don't want to be Van Wilder. You don't want to be in college for 20 years just because you're having fun. At a certain point, you have to graduate. And those are the people watching this, and those are the people that follow me. And that's why I don't think that me saying these things is breaking the rules. If anything, it's just helping that remembering, helping the progress. We always want to be progressing. We don't want to be stagnant, running in circles. You don't want to just keep taking the same grade over and over and over. So I think little bits of remembering is good. I think that's my theory anyways. Am I just saying that to justify it in my own head? I'm really not, because I have pondered this for quite a while. This is something I give a lot of thought to because I don't want to do anything irresponsible. And I think I'm helping the right people at the right time. I think the other people could care less about me and would never watch this and would never believe a word of it anyway. So it doesn't matter. If this rings true or resonates in any way, then there's probably a reason you're here still after, 30 something minutes of me rambling. Anyways, that's it, man. Did we go to the moon or did we not? Did we fake it? Or is it real? Is space real? What is space? Why are there no stars in these photographs? They're simple questions. I want to see, like when they were in between, they're something like 250,000 miles from Earth. It's a long freaking way. So when they were 100,000 miles from Earth, they're nowhere near the moon, nowhere near the Earth. All these guys have, iPhone Pros. Why couldn't they just take a video and put it up to the little window and just show this beautiful panoramic display of stars? They released one image, carefully edited picture that has you can't see any surroundings, you can't see anything, so you don't even know who took it or where or anything. They just released a picture and said, Artemis crew took this picture. And it shows all the stars. Great. But there's no context to it. Who took it? What did they use? Why can't they take a picture showing the porthole thing, just proving it's from inside? Why can't they do a video? Why can't they do any of this stuff? It doesn't make any sense to me. So that led me to my now infamous post, which led me to my psychological thinking of, why are people so freaking mad at me about this? And then that led me to think, oh yeah, because we signed a contract and we're not supposed to be asking these questions. Pretty interesting, huh? Those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear yours. Let me know. Slap a like on this bad boy or comment. I really, really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in a few days.